You know, they say they want to be around like-minded people and then make all the jokes about Unitarian Universalist organizing is like herding a bunch of cats. Those two things can't be true at the same time, right? So I think it's not so much that we're like-minded. I think it's that we have a familiarity, a sense of familiarity. Kind of like when you go home. You have that familiarity with your environment, right? And John Clark, maybe not so many years ago, but a year or so ago, I've only been here for 7 years, so sometime in the last 7 years, John Clark told me that the feeling of home is a spiritual experience. And I absolutely agree and love that, because it makes spiritual experience not so much about a choir of angels, but it is an immeasurable sense of meaning and connection. And that is what you have when you go home. And I think it's what we have when we come together. That this is a spiritual home. And if you feel at home right now, you might want to, don't look around necessarily, but just know that you are in a room full of people, and you know who they are. You even know the ones who aren't here, but whose spirit is still with us, because they have helped make this community what it is. If you feel home here, you are currently having a spiritual experience. It's brought to you by that word that I dismiss so easily: community. So I was talking about this at a cottage meeting for the stewardship campaign. I know a number of you have been at the cottage meetings. Some of you have hosted them. Thank you all. I was at a cottage meeting on Friday, and we were talking about this. It was at Bob Wallace and Kathy Kuzmanov's house. And Bob said something that brought joy to my heart. He said he would never utter the word community lightly. He didn't say that because of my argument. He said that's because that's what he thought. He would never argue or utter the word community lightly. And hearing that gave me great hope as to the power of community being recognized by its members. And Kathy, not long after that, followed it up by saying that she had been transformed by this community. And I don't think, upon reflection, that that is an outrageous claim at all. I imagine each of you might be able to say the same thing. And in fact, I'm going to give you an opportunity to reflect on that. That will be our question that we journal on later. How have you been transformed or changed or shaped by this community? So there is a very strong power in community. It's inviting us into a spiritual experience. If you feel at home in this community, it's inviting us to transformation. But here's the thing, for any of that to work, we have to have trust. We have to have trust in this community. So, what is trust? Trust is confidence in one another. Trust is demonstrable. It is earned by doing what you say you will, and by not doing what you say you won't. And as I thought about it, it occurred to me that it was similar to, but different from faith. trust and faith. And as I thought about it further, I thought maybe by sussing out the difference, the distinguishing facets between these two ideas, we could get a better idea of what trust is in a spiritual and religious community. So faith for me lies beyond evidence, and sometimes in spite of evidence. That does not necessarily mean that it is wrong. In fact, being beyond evidence lends to faith immense power. Now, power is a neutral thing. You can go good, you can go bad with it. But faith beyond evidence lends to faith immense power. It can transform and has transformed society. It has transformed our planet, and let us hope that it can do so again. It can heal. Faith is deeper than intention. It's deeper than intention. You don't intend to believe something. It has to do with yearning. Faith is a powerful understanding, but it's different from trust. It occurs to me that trust is more on a human scale. Trust has to be maintained. And before that, trust has to be earned, again, by doing what you say you're going to do and not doing what you say you're not going to do. So it's about integrity and transparency. Or maybe not transparency, but integrity and visibility. Not only doing what you say you're going to do, but having that be acknowledged, which means it must be witnessed. So unlike faith, trust is intentional. And trust, therefore, takes work. It takes work to establish, and it takes work to maintain. And not just work for the one seeking to earn trust. You can do what you say you will, and not do what you say you won't. And I can still choose not to trust you. So there's a two-part, there's a relationship in trust. And it's incumbent on both parties, or on all parties, however many parties are involved, to enter into that relationship in good faith. And trust is stressed in challenging times. Let me know if any of this starts to sound a little familiar. Because we're going through some challenging times. And I think that I've seen some trust in this community begin to fray. And that's not surprising. In fact, we have considered it long before we embarked on this adventure that the weirdness would come, and weirdness is a playful word for stress. Weirdness is a playful word for a challenge to stress, for rising anxiety. So in challenging times, our leaders need to be trustworthy. And so do those that they lead. It takes two to tango, as it were. When they are not afforded trust while leading a community through challenging times, leaders of community can often feel as though they are no longer fully welcome in the community that they are laboring for. And I think that that has happened here to some degree. I worry for our leadership that they feel apart from the people that they're working to serve. And again, this is not surprising. This is in some ways expected because we are human. And when we get stressed, we get anxious, we look for easy answers, we get impatient. Now, if that is not your intention, if it is not your intention to have those who are working on your behalf feel estranged from you, then please let those who are on the board, who are on the project management team, who are on the finance committee, or the practice associates, or the RE committee, or the justice coordinating committee, or stewardship, or pastoral care, or those leading Finding Heart groups, or any adult programs. In short, anyone who serves this congregation, let them know that you love them. I do want to reserve, by the way, a special place for the board and PMT in these remarks at this particular point. Those who are tackling the biggest challenges, the work they do is not easy, and it takes a lot of effort, a lot of discernment, and has come with a lot of lost hours of sleep. I can tell you, they need your love. They need your love. So as I said, we're human though, so this is not all that unexpected. Right? Stressful situations produce stressed out people, and that is normal. So we have to do what we can intentionally to maintain our center and cultivate a sense of love in our community. I mean, we're scared and anxious and impatient, but we are also wise. We are also wise. We know that we are frail and flawed creatures, as well as beautiful, dignified, and worthy folks. We know that we are imperfect, and we know that our grace-given divinity can coexist. We seek to mitigate the former and abet the latter as best as we can, and we do this through a little thing we call covenant. Covenant is not a faith statement, though our faith resonates through both our UUA covenant, which is also known as the principles. We, the member associations of the Unitarian Universalist, our member churches of the Unitarian Universalist Association do covenant to affirm and promote 7 principles. We have that covenant. We also have our congregational covenant, which we sing to every Sunday. So our faith resonates through both of those documents. It's an acknowledgement, a covenant is, about how it's going to be, how our yearning will have a body, and that body is our congregation. So there's been sort of changing definition or understanding of covenant over time. You heard the first one was the one between Noah and God, or Yahweh. And our tradition's sense of covenant emerges from that very first instance and has traveled through time. And as so much of our theology is done, has evolved as it has gone through. So it became, after some time, a promise not between God and man, but between people. Not an acknowledgement of grace so much as a promise made to one another, something mutual. But in both cases, a covenant is made, in essence, to maintain the universe. And you could see that God to Noah covenant as a divine model upon which we could base human communities, promises, or you could see it as the divine reflection, something that was already happening in human communities that was mythologized into a divine understanding. Either way, covenant ensures that the universe will maintain. The universe will abide. Not so much the status quo, but more like maintain the current trajectory. We UUs aren't particularly interested in status quo thinking, I don't think. I think we are here because we appreciate what evolution does, both on a planetary and geological scale, but also on a theological and ecclesiastical scale, on the scale of church. And so later on, still, covenant becomes something having to do with authority. Our ancestors decided that we did not need a pope or priest to tell us how to do religion, that we could, at that point, thank you, Mr. Gutenberg, all read our own Bibles and take what meaning we found therein. But then what would hold us together? What would be the central authority that would bind us together as a people and as a faith? Well, it was a covenant, an agreed upon set of norms and behaviors and beliefs sometimes. There's an implication there, though, a lingering resonance from our prior understanding with God. And it may be that in a human-to-human covenant, we are implicitly recognizing the divine nature of one another and the divine nature of intention and hope and promise. So the way that I like to think of covenant as we currently have it is that it's like an umbrella or a hug. It anticipates mistakes in that it is designed to survive them. So if, or more accurately, when you do something or say something that is out of covenant, that is harmful, that is not in line with the yearning that is our covenant, that is not in line with the hopes that we share together for a better world, our covenant is strong enough to maintain the universe. So in this case, our universe is our community. And it can maintain that long enough for us to recognize our common hope, to remember and repair that hope, to rectify our wrongs, admit mistakes, grant forgiveness, and repair relationships. And like a bone once broken heals stronger than it was before, so too will our community as it engages with covenant. Rooted in our hope, our covenant gives us a body and holds it together. So I've been reading recently a lot about stories and myths as being products of the earth. In fact, stories and myths as being beings that have desires, and they're clearly products of the earth because we are products of the earth and stories come through us, right? And in that understanding comes an understanding that a story can claim you. And I sort of think of covenant as a story that can claim you. It is one that you can turn to and elect, that is true. But more powerfully yet, it claims you. It shapes you. And being claimed is a powerful place. It's a powerful way to live, being claimed by covenant. And in that covenant, we can feel not certain, but not comfortable, but assured. We can be assured in our trust in one another to do the faith work that we are called to do, to fulfill our common hopes such that our community, tradition, values, and faith are not inert, but are powerfully transformative of ourselves and of the world that we live in. And lucky for you, this is happening. In fact, it's happening right now. You've been called here today by the claim that this community's covenant and spirit has on you. You did not have to come, but you were called. You were called here. And I believe that is a testament to your wisdom. Again, it doesn't always feel like a chorus of angels. Sometimes it even feels like a sting when we or another step out of line. It can be painful. But staying in, centering on our covenant, transforms stings into strings. And strings can do many things. They can connect. They can make music. I invite you to find your journals. If you need a journal, would you raise your hand and Jean-Paul will bring you a journal. Now, as you know, these journals are both anonymous and public. They will be read. And in fact, if you don't feel like writing in them, I would encourage you to take this time to read them and understand and feel connected thereby. And if you are writing, know that what you're doing is an exercise of reflection and also gift giving. Zumbor's back to bring you more journals. So I gave you a preview of what the prompt is. You'll have 4 minutes to write about this. We'll play some music quietly. The question is, how has community, and this one, if you can manage it, or whichever one that you come from, or whichever one is most active in your life, if you're not a member or frequent visitor to this community, how has community shaped you? How has community shaped you? You may begin.